Hello and welcome to today's sailing vlog. I want to talk about hurricane season. I want to talk about some of the harbors that we have found in New England, from Long Island to New England essentially, that we're using for hurricane safety. We're actually sailing between storms today. So I want to share a handful of ports that I like, some experiences we've seen this summer about hurricanes and storms. But first, let me walk you around. You can see this beautiful sail we have. We're actually on the backside of a tropical storm right now. Got the wind coming from the north. Nice broad reach. Okay, so when we first started sailing, traveling 3 to 4 years ago from Texas, yeah, we were so frightened about hurricane season, and rightfully so. There's a lot to respect in regards to it, but we were so frightened that we thought hurricane season meant marina, far north, tucked in tight with lots of lines. But safety is relative, and I have found up in New England all the way up to Maine this summer, there's some really good harbors for safety. We've seen a few thunderstorms, but the further north we've gone, the less strength that's in the storms and the winds, at least in the summer. Can't speak to the winter. So there are quite a few tropical disturbances and depressions in the Atlantic right now. We just left a harbor because of a tropical storm that's heading to Nova Scotia tonight. So let's start at Maine and let's go down the coast and talk about, I think I have 5 hurricane holes that I want to share with you. And then I have a question here at the end that I need to ask. Okay, so number 1. Starting in Maine, if we want hurricane safety, a storm's coming our way, and by the time it gets to Maine, obviously it's not going to be a Cat 5 or anything. It's a low-level storm, but it's still going to be blowing 30 and 40 knots or more. Belfast, that's our number 1 in Maine. And let me first give a little principle that we've learned. The storms typically travel north and east. That's what we know, and east mostly actually. By the time if they've made it north of Hatteras, they're going to be heading east. So the general rule of thumb that we've discovered is go west. When a storm's coming, get as western as you can and you should be good. And so Belfast is the most further north in Maine that is also west. It's like 20 miles inland, and it's a really cool, beautiful town. The next port for hurricane safety that we would look at is the Portland area. Also Falmouth, which is a great mooring field anchorage north of Portland by about 5 miles. Good town, nice bus systems, great for cruisers. So number 1 is Belfast, number 2 is Falmouth. Those would be my ultimate safeties for hurricane, and we use them quite a bit this summer. So number 3, coming further south, you got New Hampshire. I wouldn't stay really anywhere there. There's only a couple ports. And I wouldn't stay on the north side of Massachusetts, which is next. I would come around the Gloucester Point, and I would go to one of 2 ports, either Salem or Boston. And I'm going to combine those into one because they're really close. Either one of those ports are really safe, really tucked in western. I don't even know if they've ever been hit by a hurricane. If it is, it comes across the land before it hits them. So really good ports for hurricane holes, and cool towns, by the way, good harbors. Belfast, Portland, Boston, Salem, Cape Cod. So here's the arm of Massachusetts, and here's something else we've learned. Peninsulas and islands, no bueno when it comes to storms. They get the most of the wind. So out on Cape Cod, Provincetown, If I was in that area, a great run for just 20 miles is going through the canal to a town called Onset, Massachusetts. Totally cool town. Love the town, great harbor. I would do Onset or New Bedford for a hurricane hole. Great mooring fields, great anchorages, and great access to resources. The winds in Onset, if it's blowing 30 knots out in the ocean, you can expect the winds in Onset to be 50% of that. 10 to 15 knots, barely gusting 20. I don't think we've ever been there with it gusting more than 20. Just recently I was walking in town with it gusting in the 20s. Came down the hill, back to the boat, 12 knots of wind. So perfect little hurricane hole. And then you go further south or west of Massachusetts, you're in Long Island area. And here's what we saw this summer in Long Island. It can get stormy there. It's really far, a lot of land, so you get a lot of convection and heat, a lot of thunderstorm action. And they can blow pretty hard. We're talking 40, 50 knots. So it's not my preferred location for hurricane season, but if that's where we are, I would choose a western port, one of two. Port Washington, great town, great harbor. You've seen the videos the last couple episodes. Or if it's really gonna be a direct hit, up the Hudson, you can go 10 to 20 miles up there and find some mooring balls. That'd be my plan B. So I think those are my harbors for hurricane holes. I got Belfast up north, Portland, Falmouth, Boston, Salem, Onset or New Bedford on the south side of Massachusetts. Another note about those two areas, they are really far inland if you look at the charts. It's not just their great harbors, they also have islands, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket out there to knock down the wind, and the whole Buzzard Bay Peninsula. Really good. And the last one was Port Washington or the Hudson River. I would not be on the New Jersey coast. Cape May is a great harbor, but I would not be there for a storm. If I was that close, I would just go up to the northern part of Chesapeake Bay and you'd be really safe, or Philadelphia even. So, hey, that's my hurricane hole recap from this summer's experiences. We're actually sailing between storms now. I'm watching the one coming up from North Carolina, and there's a good norther coming in tonight. If you look at the wind, the weather maps, you'll see a north wind blowing in hard tonight and tomorrow. And that's gonna push this next tropical depression further east. But after that north wind, the Great Lakes, I think, are gonna be like, well, that's all the energy we have, and there's another system brewing down in the Carolinas that I've really got my eye on for not this weekend, but the next. We'll watch that and see if it develops into something. Watch the news, you'll see if it does. That's the one I got my eye on. That's the one we might have to use this storm strategy in finding a harbor. But anywho, I hope you like those 5 harbors. Question for you. If you're a traveler, a sailor, and you know these areas, what other hurricane holes would you add? Leave it in the comments. If you're just curious, you're watching the videos, and you have any questions or comments, drop them below. I'd love to chat. Thanks for watching the vlog.